Hello and welcome to the latest video instalment. This time I'm going to focus on writing to persuade, writing to argue, writing to persuade. Typically it depends on which exam board you're following, but typically it will be paper 2, section B, the transactional writing section. Unless you're OCR, then it's paper 1. Okay, but before I crack on with this, just a reminder to head on over to mrhonline.co.uk, mrhonline.co.uk, where you'll find many more video lessons and revision lessons like this one. Okay, well, let's crack on. So what I've done is I've selected the major exam boards, 4 of them, and I've listed down the AO5 and AO6 top band descriptors that you'll need. I think I'm not going to read through them all now. You'll read through them yourselves. Pause on the ones that are relevant to you. But look in the box down there. You'll see that the mark allocation and the minutes allowed, they tend to vary from exam board to exam board. But the skill sets they're still looking for exactly the same thing. Content and organisation AO5 and technical accuracy, so SPAG AO6. So that's AQ8. Pause it if that's your exam board. EDUCAS if that's yours. OCR if that's yours, and EDUCAS there too. Yeah, okay, OCR, and then EdXL. Okay, right. First little test challenge for you. Persuasive features. Worked out with some of my students the other day that I can't remember which exam board it was, but persuasive writing, being able to identify persuasive features in a piece of writing on the section A, and then being able to write persuasively on section B, covered about 35% of your overall language grade for that particular year. I think it was 2017, but I can't remember the exam board. So if you want to write persuasively, you go for a walk through the forest. Okay, think of your Irish accent, the forest, you know. Apologies for that. I'm going to tell you what all these persuasive techniques are, these persuasive features are, but pause the video now, see if how many of them you can come up with yourself. There are 13. I challenge you to get 7. Right, pause because I'm going to reveal them now. Okay, so your D is direct address, using the word using you and we, and you're in it together with the reader. Alliteration, an anecdote. Let's say I was tasked with talking to a bunch of 16-year-olds who were smoking, and my challenge was to try and convince them not to smoke. Well, I could give them a series of facts, yeah, which I'm sure they'd all be familiar with. I could also then, use an anecdote. Now, what's an anecdote? Well, an anecdote. So, for example, I could say to them, well, my uncle, when he started smoking when he was about 12 years old, and he smoked 20-30 cigarettes a day for the next 30-35 years. Then in his mid-40s, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he died 3 years later, leaving behind a wife and 3 relatively young children. And then I pause. That's got a lot more impact than these facts and stats that they may be familiar with. It's not true, that little story of personal experience, but it could be. And that's another point I want to make at this stage, that you can use false facts. That's what we call them, false facts. As long as they're realistic, the examiner's not going to fact check what you're saying. So long as it's reasonable, realistic, and it fits the purpose of your argument, use it. Okay, so F is facts, O is opinions, so fact. At the time of publication, Arsenal are 4th in the league, fact. I still think they're the best team in the world. That's an opinion. Now, if I've offended anybody at this juncture, tough. Okay, first R. Oh dear, that shouldn't be like that. Rhetorical question. Thinking of the smoking, first thing I could open up with, do you all want to die young? Rhetorical question. I know the answer to that. Of course they don't want to die young. Okay, repetition. So repeating key words or starting a sentence, consecutive sentences with the same phrase, like the anaphora a little bit. You could use research. So according to a recent study, etc., etc. First E, exaggeration or hyperbole. I've told you a million times what this one is. Well, I haven't really. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Well, you couldn't really. Emotive language. Think of the poor little children. the orphans, starving, homeless little children. It's emotive language. Nobody's going to read words like that and not feel anything other than empathy and sympathy. And if it's a charity, well, you're more inclined to put your hand in your pocket and donate. Expert opinion, Professor so and so at such and such a university, lends more gravitas, makes your argument more carry more weight, to be more serious. Statistics, facts with numbers, so percentages and so on, and then the T is a little bit of a cheap one, triplets, triplication or rule of 3, as you'll probably be familiar with it. So how many did you get? 7? Yeah, don't lie to me. Okay, so let's focus on a particular exam question. Exam questions across all exam boards are very, very similar because they're checking for this particular skill set. There are 6 different forms that you could be asked to write. So that I think off the top of my head, letter, speech, article, leaflet, report and review. They're the 6. Well done me. Check out, I've got another video that goes into each of those 6 in more detail with examples. So do check that one out as well. Okay, so here's an example exam question. Your school is planning to cut school trips as they believe they are a waste of time and students miss out on important work. So your task is to write a persuasive letter to your head teacher to convince them that students should be given the opportunity to go on school trips. So you should always plan your answer. Take 2 or 3 minutes certainly if it's a shorter 20 marker, but if it's 40 marker, 5 or 6 minutes to plan your answer. You just structure your answer carefully. So the first thing you do is you need to make sure you understand what the question is asking you to do. So you can FAP the question or gap the question or tap the question. So form, audience, purpose, or genre, audience, purpose, or text type, audience, purpose. Whichever one you do. I mean, if you've got one from your teachers at school then and you're happy with it, then run with that. So I've color-coded it here. Form, so you've got to write a letter. The audience, the head teacher, so that tells you that it's going to be quite formal. You're not going to use slang vocabulary. You're not going to swear. You're going to be formal. And then the purpose. What's the point? Well, it's a persuasive letter, and it's to convince them that students should be given the opportunity to go on school trips. So you've done this. What's the next thing you do? Right. Well, you need to come up with 3 points for your argument plus maybe a counterpoint. So for that question, I've come up with 3 potential arguments I could make. Now, if you want to pause the video and see if you can come up with 3, your 3 may well be better than my 3, or you can maybe marry one of yours with 2 of mine, or the other way around. Okay, so the first one, trips can be educational. Visiting a museum for history or a gallery for art, for example. So it's a practical way of learning. You're not stuck in a stuffy old classroom. Residential trips could teach fundamental life skills like independence, teamwork, being out of your comfort zone. No mum or dad to wait on you hand and foot. Maybe encourage you to think for yourself a little bit more. So school should teach you more than just what's on the exam. Amen to that. Third one, fun. Trips are a great way to reward hard-working students. Okay, so it's a way of being recognised if you qualify for a particular trip. So pause that, make a note of those. How were your points compared to mine? Better? Good for you if they were. Now, potential counter-arguments. Now, I think I've got 3 here as well, but you kind of need 1, and you use that counter-argument to then dismiss it and reinforce your own point of view. Trips are expensive to run. Parents can assist in payment. So this is how you counter it. Parents can assist in payment. They expect admission fees, travel costs, etc., as long as they are not unreasonable. Trips are not as effective as classroom learning. Really? Students can learn a lot from a new environment, more likely to retain information. Some students do not respond well to textbook lessons. Fun trips are a waste of time. Bah humbug. Schools should provide all students with opportunities they might not get otherwise. Just because you don't have the cash to spend on a trip doesn't mean you should be denied that privilege or that experience. Okay, so which one of these would you select and then use to reinforce your own argument? Okay, so format your answer. It's a letter, remember, so AO5, content and organisation. your address, date of writing, etc. there. The recipient's address there. First point, second point, third point, summary, and one of those points will contain a counterpoint. Greeting. Now, yours sincerely if you know the person you are writing to, yours faithfully if you do not. So if it's dear editor, then it's yours faithfully. If you know the name of the person you're writing to, the head teacher, presumably you would, then it's yours sincerely. Right, now you can thank me later, but I've actually structured an answer, a typical answer for this question. I've targeted the 7, 8, 9 bracket, and you'll see that you don't have to be a literary genius to get your top band, as I'm living proof of it. Okay, I'm joking, self-deprecating humour. Okay, introduction. Dear Mr. Smith, every year thousands of children leave education after taking their final exams, looking back fondly on their time at school. As a student myself, I can guarantee that they will not remember every hour they spent in a beige prison battling through hand cramp. Their most vivid memories would be of those spent outside the classroom, the times they witnessed wonders of the world and embraced new experiences. Hence, I am outraged that a school that wishes to open the minds of young people would abolish all school trips. Now, why have I got different colours here? What's a beige? What technique is a beige prison? Well done, it's a metaphor. What about witnessed wonders of the world? What technique's in there? Well done, alliteration. Could I be more patronising? Apologies again. And this one, emotive language, but you are directly addressing the task in this one. Okay? Moving on to your first point. So, why do students need school trips? Surely sitting in a classroom with a qualified teacher is the best possible way for a student to learn. But what if you're wrong? A recent study showed that 80% of students retain more information by learning in a new environment. A location like a museum or an art gallery can still be completely educational. It just changes the way that students see what they are studying and allows them the freedom to walk, talk, and actively engage with exam topics. In Year 7, as part of our English lessons, we went to Shakespeare's Globe in London to watch A Midsummer Night's Dream. We had already seen a film of the play, but when I think of that play now, I can only recall the actors on the stage, directly in front of me. The memory is so vivid that even today, 4 years later, I can remember the characters' costumes, their faces, and even some of the lines they said, because I could see it all happening in front of me, as I stood with my friends on a crisp March evening. That shared experience is something I will talk with my peers about today. I still talk with my peers about today. Right, go on, here's your challenge now. Why have I got these coloured? Whoever said rhetorical question, you're right. Statistics, 80%. Triplets, walk, talk, and actively engage. Rule of 3. In Year 7, and what's this little thing? Back to my uncle and the smoking. Yes, it's an anecdote. Your second point could be, there are other trips that schools offer that are not always completely educational. For example, the primary focus of the residential trip our school used to offer in Year 7 was team building and getting to know other people in the year group outside of our own form. It worked. Nice short sentence, exclamation mark there. I made some of my best friends from that one trip. Without that experience, I might not know some of the most important people in my life. It was my best friend Lily who shouted encouragement when I faltered at the zip wire, a complete stranger to me at the time. That day I conquered my fears and made a lifelong friend. These trips teach young people so much about themselves. Most students would not get the chance to go on an overnight stay away from their family without them. Some even go abroad. Dr. Lewis, a psychology professor at the University of Edinburgh, wrote in a recent article that children can only learn so much from their parents and that they pick up life skills from people their own age. These include things as simple as packing for themselves, keeping their room clean and communicating with new people. They replicate the behaviour they see in one another. What a fantastic way to gain independence. Anecdote, emotive language, expert opinion, and rule of 3 again. And the final point with your counter argument. Now, I know the main reason you want to get rid of trips is to do with money, so you're acknowledging the question. Trips do cost a lot when you consider the admission fees to attractions, and it only gets worse if you want to take a flight. However, surely as part of the school experience, parents expect to have to make payments year on year so that their children can enjoy life experience they might not have otherwise. Working parents do not always have the time to take their children to attractions such as Thorpe Park, but does that mean they don't want to? I believe many parents would be happy to pay for their child to go on a school trip with all their friends, all the entertainment with none of their responsibility. Counter-argument, rhetorical question. And finally, a little conclusion. To conclude, I believe that the points I've made are valid, and I can only hope you take these into consideration. Please don't deny these crucial opportunities to young people. You can make a difference. Yours sincerely, Maria Towns. Clearly not me, I hope. Emotive language. Yours sincerely, remember, you know the name of the person you're writing to, so it's yours sincerely. Right, I think that's that covered. Hopefully you've found that useful. Test yourselves on the persuasive features. Do watch the video as many times as you need to, pressing pause, taking notes, and so on. Okay, and final reminder, head on over to mrhonline.co.uk where there are many, many more of these types of videos on language and lit. Every exam board catered for. Okay, cheers guys, bye.